Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, July 1st. First show of July here. We are filming on Monday, June 29th, but it is currently, while you're listening to this, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and you know what that means. Oh, he's not here. Okay. I knew that. Baseball Bob will not be joining us due to a personal conflict in his schedule, which is fine. But it is 10 Cent Beer Night, the official sports show of Fifth Dimension Radio.com here in beautiful Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, on Fifth Dimension Radio and WAOH TV every Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So without further ado, we'll get started. Now, like I said, Bob is not going to be here today. You're going to have to deal with me here. But he does have a message for you. He wants you to have a fun and safe July 4th this Saturday here. Because he couldn't be here, obviously, he wanted to send that message through. Be careful out there. You know, chew your food. Don't choke on anything. Don't blow your hands off. But have fun. But there's a ton going on sports this week, especially around here in Northeast Ohio. So we'll get it going while we're on the theme of USA. We talk about the knockout round coming up here for the World Cup, and by the time it'll be on at the end of this here, 8 p.m. on Fox and Fox 1. United States in the knockout round will play Bosnia Hers for their first round matchup there, and hopefully can make it to the final 16 there. I believe that's what it is there. Let me pull it up there. Yeah. USA lost last week to Turkey in the final minute. It was in the 8 minutes of injury time, and I think there was about a minute left to go, and they blew it, and Turkey scored. But Turkey's been eliminated, so it didn't matter. Turkey was eliminated regardless of what they did in that game. But Team USA, hopefully this Wednesday, in a little bit here while you're listening to this, will advance to the next stage for next week there. Round of 32. So, yeah, it cuts down to 16, then 8, then 4, and then the final there. So, I don't remember when the last time, I don't have in front of me, USA won. Let me look that up here. Men's knockout. I was not prepared for this one, so I do apologize in advance here. One knockout stage match in history. They won. It was 2002. They beat Korea 2-0 in round 6. So it was round 16, which means they were in the final 16 there. Let's see, lost to. No, okay, they won. They beat Mexico 2-0 in 2002 to advance to play South Korea. That's what happened. So it's only happened once. So we're pulling for them to do it again. So let's just go USA there. There's a lot of substitutions too in that Turkey game. So I mean, head coach was preserving his players. So I mean, they might be coming off a loss here, but it was a game where, you know, they took it seriously, but they didn't. You know, I mean, they didn't keep everybody out there. I do think they made a valiant effort to try to win the game, but they were also trying to win with their reserves as opposed to fully healthy with their starters. I know a couple guys pulled some stuff, but I mean, it'll be about a week since that game, so hopefully things will be healed up by then. But yeah, so we have for the knockout rounds. Here you go. I actually got a nice breakdown here. We got Germany and Paraguay will face off today. You'll know the results by the time you hear this. And then France and Sweden will face off. And then we're going to have South Africa is going to play Canada. Portugal's going to play Croatia. That's going to be a good one. You got Spain going to play Austria there. And then on the other side of the map there, on the final 32, Brazil's going to play Japan. You have Ivory Coast playing Norway. Argentina playing Cabo Verde. I think Argentina's going to roll in that one. Australia will play Egypt. Mexico's going to play Ecuador. That's going to be a solid one. That's going to be a good game there. And then you have Switzerland playing Algeria. And, winners of that will reach to the round 16. And then we'll go from there. But pulling for USA to have some magic while they're hosting here in the United States. It's been, from my understanding too, it's been a great experience for the tourists that have come from the other countries that come to the United States at this special time with the 250th anniversary of the country and everything like that there. Now the summer weather's kicking in here. Here in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, it's already blistering 89 degrees. We might even see 100 one of these days here this week, so stay cool out there. Well, if you're, I want to just bring this up, right? It's not sports related at all, but it's hot over here. We're finally getting some what I call baseball weather, what Bob would call golf weather. But last night in Idaho, Montana was a different story. 2 to 6 inches of snow. Now, I don't know how long it stayed on the ground because they did have some warmer storms coming in, actual rainstorms. But I was just saying, could you imagine being a kid and we're near Independence Day in June, okay? And instead of going to the pool and having an adventure outside in the woods or something, you have to get your snow pants on and help Dad shovel snow. That's messed up, man. I don't know how I would do it. I mean, seriously, bless the kids that are going through that and taking it well, because I don't know how I could get through that. Yeah, and can you imagine your local minor league baseball team canceling their game over this snow? Again, I don't know how long it lasted on the ground, but still, 2 to 4 inches of snow last night in June. That's just crazy. And again, Montana and Idaho, I would expect that maybe in the Upper Dakotas, southern Canada there. And I know that's not too far from Montana. But, I mean, we're talking southern Montana got it. It's just crazy. It just is there. Speaking of crazy, so is this American League Central Division Series here between the White Sox and the Guardians. Tied, technically, right now as we speak. White Sox 43 and 39, Guards 44 and 40. Had to crack up a little bit. One of the former Guardian pitchers is with the Giants, and I had the game on Friday. It was Giants and Braves. It was just whatever was on MLB Network. And he takes the mound. I don't have the name in front of me. I could get that up here. And they were talking about like who drafted him, his past teams and whatnot. And they said, oh yeah, drafted. He said he came from the Indians. Is what the guy said. Now by technicality, he was drafted when they were called the Indians. But the fact that it's a California team, the guy was still calling them like currently like they were the Indians there. I just thought that was cool that people are still accidentally calling them the Indians there. You have, I'm gonna look at Sam Hentges was the guy that took the mound there, but I just found that funny that people still get still have in their mind that they're the Indians there. But so the Guards this past week against the White Sox in Chicago. They lost the series 2-1. White Sox took the first 2 games, and then Cleveland took the last game in 10 innings 4-3. And then against Seattle at home, Cleveland won 2-1. Seattle took game 1, and Cleveland took the other ones. Interesting exchange of words, I guess, between former guard / Indian, if you want to be technical about it, Josh Naylor and Austin Hedges. I guess they really got into it, and Austin made a comment to Josh Naylor that nobody likes you. And which is like, people might think, oh, big deal, they got into it, they used some high school language there. No, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of fans wondered why Cleveland never retained Josh Naylor. The guy's hitting very well. He's even been an all-star. He was an all-star for them a few years ago. He's been an all-star since. You know, they could use another bat, somebody that's going to put the ball in the stands, hit for a decent average, and that's what Josh is doing. Now we're finding out, I guess he may have been a clubhouse problem, and that's why he was never offered an extension. That's why he was traded when he was. It goes back, it's like, you know, is it the biggest deal in the world? You don't want a locker room cancer, but we're seeing more and more of these players do well when they leave Cleveland. And some people are like, well, that's the normal Cleveland situation. Not necessarily. Okay, let me explain. Usually, and I'm talking about all three teams, mainly the Browns and the guards, okay? Not necessarily too much the guards, it's more the Browns. I won't say this is for the Cavs, but there will be a big-name player that joins the team, and they're not as good as they were in other places, okay? We're now seeing another pattern where, I'm talking more guards than the Browns, believe it or not. And it could go for the Browns a little bit too, but usually these type of players are usually done playing by the time the Browns are done using them and abusing them. We're seeing a lot of Eno Netti's former, some star, some role players leaving and doing better elsewhere. And another example, it's not just Josh, but this past week, you know, all-star balloting is in the finals. How they do it is they announce certain players locked in their position, and then the voting pushes to lock in the other positions. They'll have finalists, and you vote for it. It's different than what it used to be. There's more of a breakdown to it. It used to be you voted every day until the day, and those were the starters, and then players and coaches got to select the backups, you know. And they still get to select the backups, but now it's like, okay, this position's been locked in. Now if you want your player, if your player's a finalist for one of these positions, then you can vote them in, you know, etc. So they announced the first All-Stars for both National League and American League last week. Okay, National League, no big surprise. Shohei Ohtani, the best overall player in the game right now. He's up for both MVP and Cy Young if it were to end today. So that's the big deal. He's pitching very well for somebody that's coming off Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. Yeah, the guy had Tommy John surgery, but still played DH and hit the ball better than anybody else last year. Past 2 years, I should even say. And so, okay, so the designated hitter spot for the National League's been decided by Dodgers designated hitter Shohei Ohtani. The American League representative, the first one that locked up their All-Star status, nobody would have guessed, was not Aaron Judge, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's hurt. He can't even play. Why is he in the discussion for the All-Star voting right now? Who knows? The answer to the question, though, Ernie Clement, second baseman of the Blue Jays. Baseball Bob, I was talking to him on the phone yesterday. He did not know that. He was speechless. For those that don't know, Clement was drafted and brought up by the Indians, and it was Indians at the time, okay, before anybody tries to correct me. And he was called up, I think it was 2020, and then 2021, 2022. About, you know, decent fielder, average player. He could play second, short, and third. Gets traded to Oakland, all right? Later signs in that offseason with the Blue Jays. Now he's in his first All-Star game. He is 30 years old, which, I mean, he came up in the league a little bit later than a lot of players do. And this is his first All-Star nod, which, congratulations to him. I'm not saying anything against it, but, okay, his first All-Star nod. Josh Naylor may not make it to the All-Star game this year, but he was last year, okay? You have Andres Jimenez, shortstop of the Blue Jays. He's a finalist for the position. Right now, I think he's in second in the voting for shortstop, okay? You're seeing a lot of these guys that were former members of the Guards that are doing better now after Cleveland. That didn't used to be the case for years, especially the Francona era. So I have to wonder what's going on. This team needs bats. I will mention that, okay, the batting's getting better with the younger guys. You have Bazana there having a little bit of a better week than the previous week there. Khalil Watson, what a start for him. Multi-RBI games, 3-4 straight games in his first 4 games or something like that, however it was. Good defensive playmaking out there. DeLautner's back, okay. There is a lot of things to like right now with some of the young talent. And that's what I told Bob last night. I said, this is why I told him for opening day, they need to just call everybody up and just start them right away. Because if you're going to have, because I said it can't be any worse than the batting they had last year. And now there's suspicion, could they make a bigger move for a bigger bat? I've heard fans jokingly talk about Aroldis Chapman, who I know is a pitcher, but the name's been brought up. They brought up Mike Trout. I don't see the Angels parting with Mike Trout. Here's a name for you, and I'm dead serious by this. And I'll explain my logic here. The MLB will have a salary cap soon. It's almost official. They're going back and forth on it. They're trying to finalize everything. I want to say final. They're not jumping to finalize. Excuse me. They're trying to get all the information together so they can come with an agreement as soon as possible. They're talking with the executives. They're going to talk to the players' union, and it's going to be a whole thing. All right. This new salary cap's got a ceiling, obviously, and it's got a hard floor, $170 million floor. Okay. To put in perspective, guards' payroll is not even near there, okay? So they would have to spend about that money. So one of the first things you're thinking is maybe they have quant extension. He's struggling right now at the plate, but this is new for him. He's expected to turn things around, all right? What if they go all in, okay? There's been a rotation at shortstop. Rocchio's performance at the plate has starting to diminish. Okay, Arias is just not the guy they thought he was. They're having a lot of problems in New York with the Mets. The manager got fired over the weekend. They're looking at a potential fire sale. I would not rule out a reunion with Francisco Lindor right now. I think it is realistic. I think when they're preparing to get to that floor, that cap, that they have to meet. Of course, they're not going to have to meet for another couple of years. But at the same time, you want to put fans in the stands. You want to get another bat with Jose that's going to get you there. And somebody that's going to be happier. Trust me, he misses it here. Despite the talking he did before he left, he didn't realize what he had until it was gone. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying don't be surprised if you hear a conversation. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to finish off our baseball segment here. And then along with that, 1 local kid gets drafted, 2 regional total, and we have a kid from Akron going to make his final decision within this week or next week. We'll talk about that and more. Stay tuned. Hey, it's Seth here. Thank you for tuning in here. FifthDimensionRadio.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Fifth Dimension Radio. And WAOH TV. This is Ted Sabina, the official sports show here. And we were just talking about baseball and the Guardians situation. Quick standings update for Major League Baseball. Of course, I mentioned White Sox and Guards in first place. 4.5 games behind them are the Twins. 9 games behind them are the Tigers, and 9.5 games behind them are the Royals there. So Twins are creeping up a bit in the conversation, but right now it's between White Sox and Guards, and we're not done talking about those 2 teams here. Give me a sec. American League East, the Rays are on top as we're recording, 48-33 record. Yankees 1 game behind them. Blue Jays 10.5. Orioles 11 and Red Sox 12.5. So right now it's just between Tampa and New York for the American League East right there. American League West. Rangers are on top 42 and 42. That's right, a 500 team. And they're on top right there. Mariners are a half game back. Astros are 1 game back. A's are 2 games back. Angels are only 6.5 games back, which is not terrible right now at this current time of the schedule. So Angels playing a little bit better baseball. Everybody in the American League West is still somewhat in the conversation there. For the National League, the Atlanta Braves at 49 and 33 are 3 games ahead of the Phillies, 6 games ahead of the Marlins, 7.5 against the Nationals, and 15 against the Mets, who I mentioned in the last segment. Mets fired their manager over the week. So let's go see who the interim was there. But I mean, it's been such a weird season for the Mets, and I didn't realize they've never had this bad. What was it? There was a stat. Let me see if I saved it here. I don't think I did. About the New York teams, but this is the first time that we're at the end of June, and one of the New York teams was, what would they say, 15 games. Now that they've won a couple since, but 15 games under 500 at this time, first time since 2002, I think it was. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a long time since one of the New York teams fell that far under 500 record. So it's been a mess there. But the Braves still on top of the American League East, with Phillies and Marlins still in the conversation right now. National League Central, the Brewers playing so well right now, 50 and 31. 5.5 games behind them are the Cubs, 7 games behind them are the Cardinals, 9.5 games behind them are the Pirates, and 11.5 games behind them are the Reds. I don't know what's going on with the Reds. I mean, they're not playing terrible. They're 39 and 43, okay? It's not terrible. And I will say the Brewers are just outplaying everybody, but I thought the Reds would be doing better right now. The Pirates are starting to pick up. They had some injuries. I know Ryan O'Hearn, their first baseman, had a good game yesterday, and he's coming back. He's come back from injury there. I think in the National League Central, I think things are going to go back to getting closer to what they were about a month ago. When I mean close, I mean standing close-wise, where it's up for grabs there. It's just, can you beat the Brewers? Because I mean, their starting pitching is they might have one of the best, if not the best, rotation right now in baseball. It's pretty impressive. In the National League West, you have the LA Dodgers with a league best 54 wins, 10 games behind them, and lost the series to the Dodgers over the weekend to the San Diego Padres. 12.5 games behind them are the Diamondbacks, 18.5 games behind them are the Giants. Giants expected to have a fire sale. We're talking Matt Chapman, Rafael Devers, Willie Adams. They're looking to unload all their veterans and big money contracts for top prospects there. Colorado Rockies are 21 games behind the Dodgers. And I saw they're 33 and 51. I saw a tweet from last year when they went 9 and 50, and how bad that was. So this is a little better. This is, and to Rockies fans, look, you might become the next White Sox next year. Just that team that after a couple years did not do very well and then just takes off. And I reminded Baseball Bob on the phone last night that the White Sox here, going back to that, they have the first pick overall in the draft coming up. So on top of everything they already have, they could have the next top star coming into Chicago in about 2 years. It is kind of crazy. So the guard schedule going into this week, by the time you hear this, they'll be they have wrapped up a series against the Rangers. So the first play, they're at home all week. So this is good. On the holiday, 4th of July, try to retain their position in the division. They're at home. So this is going to be, and the weather's going to be pretty pleasant. We might get some rain later in the week, but it's going to be 80s and 90s all week. So the ESPN is having the game tonight, Monday night. By the time you hear this, it'll be over with. But so they get some national attention there. Depending how they do against the Rangers, because the Rangers are in first place in their division, want to retain that as well. Rangers are kind of an age team. This was a team that went and won the World Series a few years ago. They've made some roster changes since, but it is on paper an older team. And starting Thursday, there will be a 4-game series against the Chicago White Sox. Peacocks picked up Sunday's game at 2 p.m. This is gonna be big because you gotta remember you don't play all the division foes as much anymore. So they just played these guys here last week in Chicago. They lost the series 2-1. You have a 4-game series in Cleveland. This sounds like 2005 all over again. The only difference is that these two teams are close, where Chicago had an edge against Cleveland, but if there was one team that could beat Chicago in the American League, it was Cleveland that year, if people can remember. With Cleveland's solid bullpen and then the solid hitting of both ends, but especially those White Sox, how well they hit the ball that season. That's why they won the World Series that year. Enough pitching and then incredible hitting. I mean, it was disgusting there. So that's what to look out for this week. So Rangers, White Sox, guards play every day. Just stay healthy, find a way to win. But starting pitching's been great of late. Slade's been great. Pat's been great. Gavin's been great. I mean, they've all been solid. They really have. Parts of the bullpen, so overall been good. It's just getting enough hitting. They're just not bringing enough runs in, and it's becoming a problem. And so right now they're 44-40. I said they're tied. They technically are tied. They're listed second, but they're tied for first right now. And so hopefully when we get back here next week, they will still be tied there for at least tied, I should say, for first there. Worst case scenario. But you'd like to see them at least. I'd say the best worst case scenario for the guards is if they go 4-3, okay, and that includes taking 2 away from the Rangers and 2 away from the White Sox. Best worst case scenario. Anything better than that would be great. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. Now, White Sox did beat up on the Royals last week. They even had a 22-4 victory. So something to watch out for. The bats are playing very well for the White Sox, but the pitching's been well for the guards. So pitching's always going to have a little bit of an edge there. So, to the NBA, because we are now deep into we're getting deeper into the offseason. Free agency is just about to start. There's been some definitely some moves, some talk, some rumor mill going around. Let's start with the draft. Just going to break that. We're not going to go through everybody, but the first overall pick, Washington Wizards selected A.J. Dibanesta from BYU. That was to be expected. I think some people thought, could they go a different direction here? Now, on paper, the Washington Wizards, if fully healthy, have a playoff-type starting 5. I'll say that. People were talking about, could Utah sneak up there and be in the playoff conversation in the West? I would say, realistically, if healthy, yes. I'll say the same thing about the Wizards. I think the turn is here. I think Washington's done being the punching bag. I think there's enough talent there now to make some noise. Second overall pick, Darren Peterson, born in Canton, raised here in Cuyahoga Falls where I'm sitting. The highest rated prospect, Northeast Ohio prospect since LeBron James. Highest draft pick of Northeast Ohio since LeBron James. Going second overall to the Utah Jazz. I know when we were here last week with Baseball Bob, and it was mentioned that Peterson didn't want to go to Utah, and and Bob was like, well, I would have blackballed him, we would have blacklisted him if I was an owner, this and that. Here's where the good story comes in. They flew to Canton the day before the draft to talk to him. They really wanted him, and they broke down the future to him, how he was going to be utilized, what the plan was around him, and he got excited. He was all for it. So it was down to be a Jazz kid at the end of the day, and I think that is great. He is also, because he got drafted here, this is the first brother NFL and NBA duo to be drafted, brothers to be drafted in both the NFL and the NBA on the same year ever. His brother Daryl was selected by the Los Angeles Rams. So his brother's killing in football. He's killing in basketball. His brother was a later pick. So going on to the rest of the draft here, third pick overall by the Memphis Grizzlies, Cameron Boozer, that is Carlos's son there. Kind of middle. So he has an older son, and then he had the twin boys there. I think it was Carmen, the other twin, did not declare for the draft, so just Cameron there. So he goes to Memphis there. Chicago Bulls pick Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina with the 4th pick. And with the 5th pick, Kean Wagler, point guard at Illinois, gets picked in here. And I found that interesting because, okay, there was 4 straight point guards. Now, again, Wagler can play shooting guard too, but he's listed point guard here, and they have Darius Garland. So are they going to go with the point guard combo like they try to do with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland in Cleveland? That's my guess. But it is a good pick there. I'll round out the top 10 here. 6th overall was Michael Brown Jr., point guard out of Louisville, goes to the Brooklyn Nets, gives them a new starting point guard. The Kings finally get their point guard in Darius Akuf Jr. Out of Arkansas. Kingston Fleming's point guard out of Houston goes to the Atlanta Falcons, of course, probably replacing Trae Young, who was traded to Washington in the season. Number 9 pick overall, Dallas Mavericks, who just hired Dusty May as their new coach, pick Morez Johnson Jr. out of Michigan. Kind of made that one too obvious there. And then number 10 pick overall, Braden Burries, shooting guard out of Arizona, goes to the Milwaukee Bucks there. Bucks also had the 13th pick after their trade last week, and in case you missed it, Giannis Antetokounmpo was traded along with Bobby Portis to the Miami Heat. Miami Heat got back Tyler Hero, Kelly Ware, Jacquez Jones, I believe is his name. I'm going by memory here. And it's draft picks, okay? Tyler Hero's from Milwaukee, so that kind of worked out there. I thought they did well in that trade. Apparently, Celtics really pushed hard in the trade department too for Giannis. Did not happen. Giannis told, I guess, Boston, I will not sign an extension with you. So that really kind of drew the line of where he was going to go, because it was between Miami and Boston, and when he told Boston, hey, I'm not going to stay here long term, that pretty much sealed his fate that he was not going to be headed to Boston there. And so Boston could be moving Brown there because they offered him in the Giannis trade. Nothing happened, but the fact that they were dead set of potentially moving on from him, it sounds like that's the direction they're headed. And I think that's weird. They won a championship just a few years ago with him and Tatum. You gave him that big contract for the reason the guy's a very productive player, very good. He might not be a LeBron James or Kobe Bryant tier type player, but he is very, very good. You could get a haul for him at the same time. I don't know. Boston's in a weird place right now. They really are. But as far as the Bucks, that's, it's sad to see it go the way it went. But, I mean, they did walk out very, very well there. They did pick up the option, too, on Kevin Porter. I'm trying to pull up some more details on that trade there. But, no, I think they got enough players, enough out of that deal where they're going to be pretty competitive next year. I'm not going to say playoffs, but they're going to be they're going to give teams a hard time. I do think that. So just something to watch out there. For the Cavaliers, go to draft track. Cleveland traded away the 29th pick to Sacramento for the 34th pick and a 34, second round pick. All right. Sacramento picked Alex Karaban out of Connecticut with that pick there. I looked at, there's a couple players I did like that were on the board when they were picking, but it is what it is. So they trade back to 34. They used the 34th pick overall. And it threw fans, it threw me off a little bit. I mean, I know the guy is very, very good, but it's just who he is and what the needs they had now. I mean, Cleveland just went with the best guy on the board, and that was Malik Thomas, guard out of Arkansas. And I guess it's come out, if they did not have a trade there at 29, this is who they were going to pick at 29. So they got the guy they wanted for a much lower pick, cheaper price, and added assets to it. Shooting guard, great at scoring, heck of a long-range shot. He's about 6'3", 6'4". CBS comparison to Bones Highland, who's with the Timberwolves right now. Decent at defense, good at steals. All right. And he's a shot maker, but that's about it. This is going to be a guy, they're going to put him on a two-way contract. There's going to be no rush to get him out there. And he's going to play a lot for the Cleveland Charge for the beginning. All right. I honestly thought they were going to just trade the pick, like away, not draft anybody at all. But they decided to use the pick in the second round there on him. I think it's like I said, it's a good pick, but we could use another wing, we could use a center, and they went with another scoring guard. You know, we saw this last year too with Proctor. Okay, and Proctor, they're going to say is going to have a bigger role going into next season. So maybe Malik Thomas, that's the situation the following year. But it kind of just threw me. I'm not mad about it. I dig it, but I thought, you know, they would just go a different direction here. But we'll wait. Summer League's around the corner. We'll see Malik in action and get to have some fun seeing him and some of the undrafted free agents play for a spot on the roster. And see if they can at least make... I mean, he'll be okay, but if the rest can make it to training camp at least. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more. We got a ton to talk about this NBA off-season. And especially before... Because by the time we get back here next week, there's going to be so much change, it's just not even going to be funny. I mean, the news is already coming in on some other free agent moves right now. So that and more. Stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 10 Cent Beer Night, our final segment of our first show in July, as we are getting deeper into the summer. And then, of course, once again, wishing you all a very happy Independence Day and weekend. There, it runs on a Saturday, which it's hit or miss because it's like, okay, a little more flexibility on a lot of people's schedules. More people can have time off. But at the same time, you don't really have that extra day off a lot of companies would offer because it's not on a Wednesday or Thursday, you know, on the week. So it's on a Saturday. But I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. But guys, seriously, be safe. Enjoy yourselves. And happy 250th birthday, America. Speaking of USA and America here, of course, we're talking about basketball, where we left off. We were talking about the draft and everything. I pretty much wrapped up my thoughts on the draft there. I did want to mention real quick, we mentioned Darren Peterson, born in Canton, raised in Cuyahoga Falls, got picked second overall. The San Antonio Spurs picked with the 20th pick that they got from Atlanta in some trade, Jaden Quantance, center from Kentucky. He's from Cleveland. So that was a Cleveland board. So 2 Northeast Ohio kids. I think today's his birthday, too. So happy birthday to him. 2 Northeast Ohio kids got drafted in the first round this past week, which if we count it, and I'm not going to do it in my head right now, but that's a handful within the past 4 years that have been drafted from the NBA, from their respective colleges and whatnot there. And I will point out, too, I found it interesting, okay, the Thunder and the Spurs, the two Western Conference Finals teams, had some overall higher picks because of previous trades, so they were able to get some top prospects along with what they already have. And that's been one of the Thunder's secrets to not just winning the championship a year ago, but to being as consistent as they've been the past couple of years. Is just loaded with young stardom prospects. And I found it interesting, their picks. I think Thunder did have one guard, but the rest of them were all tall centers or somebody under the basket, because the kid from Cleveland, for example, he's 6'9", which, it's good height, but that is short for a center. That's your small forwards right there. I mean, he could play power forward. I mean, of course, with Wembanyama there, he's not going to start at center. All right, but the point was, I found it interesting that two of these teams here had already decided to go big. And they're already big enough, too, is what I'm trying to say. So it just goes to show you that size is back in the NBA instead of the what we saw mostly at Golden State with the limited size, but the fast and the shooting and everything. I think that's going a little bit wayside, and they're mixing up where it's like, okay, we want our shooters, we want our speed, but we need our size, too. That's what's going to really conquer and beat these teams. And if you think about it, I was talking with some people because of this LeBron James talk this week. We'll get to that in a sec, but we talk about the 2016 championship team that happened 10 years ago and everything like that, and the size the Cavs brought to the table that helped win that championship. You look at when the Raptors beat the Warriors in 2019, that was a big deal. That was their first ever championship. And everyone talks about potentially trading to get Kawhi Leonard back. And I guess Kawhi said he would sign an extension with if traded, only with Toronto. So you could tell he wants to go back to the place where he won a championship. Now, I know he won a championship with San Antonio, too. But he had a falling out with San Antonio, and he was the reason they won in Toronto. In San Antonio, he was part of the reason. In Toronto, he was the reason. Now, the other part, at the time, they traded for Marc Gasol, who was a big. And, again, the Warriors were not that big of a team. Yeah, they had Kevin Durant and all that, but he wasn't under a basket talent. And Marc Gasol was a big difference maker in that series. They could not go up very well against him with what they had. So it just goes to show that if you got that under the basket presence, it is still impactful in the NBA there. So, what's the latest I'm hearing from the NBA hot stove and everything? Here's the latest news that's happened today. Again, there's going to be a lot is going to be done between now and when the show airs that we're going to miss. I guarantee you when I leave here, there's going to be some big news that we're not going to be able to talk about until next week, because it will not happen until we're done recording here. And that's what always happens. NFL, MLB, it doesn't matter. When we leave the station, it's same with the Myles Garrett trade that happened a few weeks ago. All of a sudden, we were talking about, it's not going to happen. And then it happened when we left the studio here. So this is the latest. Of course, this one's Cavs related. James Harden declined his option with the team, and that was to be expected. That was the plan. He declines the option. He's going to negotiate a long-term contract with the Cavs. He's staying in Cleveland. That's the plan there, okay? Fred VanVleet exercised his $25 million option to stay in Houston. Zach LaVine exercised his $49 million player option to stay in Sacramento. Draymond Green declined his $27.7 million player option. And some people might say, well, it's to get a bigger contract. Well, one, Draymond's not playing for he's not worth $27 million a year anymore. Not even close. He declined it because this is what's coming out. Golden State's making a push for LeBron. Okay? this is the plan. They want to make a trade with the Wizards. It'd probably include Jimmy Butler, it'd have to acquire Anthony Davis. And the idea is to coax LeBron, like, hey, Green will be back in Golden State. He's going to sign a cheaper deal. And he's going to do this so LeBron can get his money. And so it can be Curry, AD, LeBron, and Draymond Green. And they can take a run for the championship. Here's my thing with this. There's a couple things. One, I don't want to see it. If LeBron doesn't want to come back home, whatever. I know me and Bob are harping about, well, it might happen. It might happen. If he wants to stay in LA, that's fine. I'm not opposed to if he wants to spend his last season. He hasn't said for sure, but it's most likely his last season. If he wants to spend it in LA, okay. Golden State is the enemy. We lost 3 championships to them. The Golden State's won 4 with Steph Curry. The only championships they talk about that Golden State was involved in is 2016, the one they lost. 2019, the other one they lost. And the media gives special attention to California teams, mind you. Okay, they did give them a lot of attention when they won. But when you talk about these championships with Golden State, they always bring up, oh, remember when they blew a 3-1 lead? Do you remember when Kawhi and the Raptors beat them? So they already are not very well liked. All right? LeBron had the biggest comeback ever against that team. And let's be honest here. If this happens, okay, one, I'm not going to like it. But 2, is this team, the way it's built, good enough to be OKC in San Antonio? I don't think so. I think LeBron and Steph could get along together. I think that would work. AD, he's so injury prone, you don't know what's going to happen. And you have to count on him being there if you're going to beat Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. Draymond Green's not going to beat him. Okay? So, this is a bigger gamble than, let's say, he goes to Cleveland and it's an easier... And I am taking it, keep in mind, the Knicks won the championship and they looked damn good. I give them all the credit. They really did. But I do think it's an easier path to the finals than going to Golden State, relying on Anthony Davis being healthy, relying on Draymond Green trying to be old. He's not what he used to. I cannot stress that enough. This is a guy, he used to be a triple-double machine with great defense. He's decent defense, and he might get you a decent amount of rebounds along with 8 or 9 points. He's not even close to what he is. So to say that this is kind of like a new Big Four is insane. Just, it does not make any sense to me. All right. I do think he's going to hear out teams. I was reading today something about when he was in 2024, he did it too, where he heard a number of teams. He was dead set on staying in LA. But Golden State called. So he heard him out. In 2014, when he comes back to Cleveland, okay, it wasn't just, oh, I'm for sure coming back. I think part of him was saying that, but he heard out the Suns. He heard out, I think, the Spurs, who beat them in Miami. He heard out a number. He heard out the Knicks again. He heard them out. He heard out the Bulls. It may not have been the Spurs. It may have been the Bulls. Okay? So he heard out these other teams and then decided Cleveland, I'm going back to Cleveland. Okay? He's going to hear it out. You know. I mentioned last week that the 2016 team met up, most of them, not all of them. And him and Kevin Love had a conversation about wherever he goes, Love's going to go. Okay? I guess some of the players on the golf course did ask him, had the balls to ask him, what are you doing this summer? He wouldn't tell them. Not even a hint. So they were just guessing. They were just debating whether or not he had already made his mind up and where it would go. Two of them already said they think it's the Lakers. You know, again, if it is, I'm much more okay with that than just not Golden State. Come on. Okay. So Draymond Green's going to decline his player option there. DeAndre Ayton of the Lakers accepted his option. Marcus Smart declined his option. That's the guy I would like to see in Cleveland if we're not going to keep Schroeder. Their Mavericks pick up the option on Ryan Nembhard. Their Andrew Wiggins opts into his $30 million extension, their former Cavalier first-overall pick. What I'm hearing about the Cavs, so there's not been a ton, and there doesn't need to be a ton. Before everybody blows it up, they were a top 4 team this year. Okay? They need to tweak something, but they also need to keep the chemistry. That is huge in the NBA, is keeping your chemistry. It is how the Knicks won it all this year. It is how the Spurs got to the finals this year. It is how the Thunder got to the semifinals again this year. Okay, that chemistry is everything. It really is. Roster shakeups can be good, but you have to be done right. I heard Jack Lindell, center, played for Atlanta and a couple teams last year. He's on the Cavs' radar. It'd be a solid big man to pick up for the bench. Okay. Lakers are looking into him as well. The Lakers are also looking into Dean Wade. They really, really like Wade. I'm somebody, we've talked with Baseball Bob House, who's a big Dean Wade fan. I'm somebody who is a believer. They're talking about him and Keon Ellis, this and that. I know he's got good ties with these players, and I did mention chemistry is everything. I would let both of them walk. See if I could find something else there in that wing position. First of all, regardless what LeBron decides, Jalen Tyson's a long-term small forward. I'll tell you that straight up. Okay? But I do think for depth reasons, you get another wing, 3-and-D guy that can rebound, but also can produce points when need be. You look at, we'll pick on the Knicks and the Spurs, the guys that made the finals. You look at their bench production, and you look at their starting production, everybody's putting points on the board. Dean Wade really was not putting much points on the board when it came to the playoffs. I mean, he did shoot very well percentage from 3, but he only took so many threes per game, too. So I think we've seen the best out of him. I think it's time to move on. If they keep him, whatever, I understand it. Keon was a little bit of a disappointment. I was really pulling for him, especially with Boston and other bigger teams trying to get him. So I thought, okay, this guy's legit. So there's something about him, and now Cleveland's got him, and now it sounds like he's going to walk. But as far as the LeBron James saga continues, we should know by, I would say, this time next week. Maybe a little longer. Free agency starts technically July 1st. Okay? He might not rush, but I don't think he, as far as what he decides, but I don't think you're going to see another The Decision, where he's going to play it out, wait till everybody's picked up. But I do think he's going to take his time. He's going to evaluate. This is potentially his last season, so he's got to make sure it's good. It's going to be interesting. It really, you're trying to get one more ring before you're done. I doubt the Knicks will talk to him. I'm not saying that's in the rumors, but as far as teams that have consistently talked to him and consider, the Bulls are in rebuilding mode. Okay, I don't think San Antonio's on the table there. Suns are a rebuilding team right now. Suns made an interesting trade yesterday. Miles Bridges. I thought the pieces that they got back and the pieces they traded away, and I understand where the Hornets are coming from. I think some people were thinking, well, the Hornets, they were at a good pace, and they traded LaMelo Ball to the Timberwolves, okay? And that one's a toss-up because they got draft picks way ahead of time, and the thought is this is after Anthony Edwards' time there is done, and these picks could be higher value and everything. I like the trade. I see both sides of the trade, right? I think Hornets felt they saw the best out of Bridges, and they're like, we can move him now, get some good veteran pieces. They got Grayson Allen, got Royce O'Neal, and they got draft picks. And they sent one draft pick along with Bridges, and it gives the Suns another body, and he fits that system too. Another, I should say, solid but small forward, good forward body to go with what they have. As far as the LaMelo Ball thing, I think it could work very well. The question is, could LaMelo stay healthy? That is the number one. That's the big thing. Can he keep his head in the game too? Because here's the thing they don't talk about when it comes specifically to LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards. Okay, look, I'm a dude too. Okay, I try to take care of my body. I get traction from females ranging in their 20s to their 40s, okay? I know how it is. I'm not going to say I don't know how it is to be a rich basketball player, but, the female attention's nice. Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball have been historically known to not contain themselves with the females. I mean, it will sometimes, they will say certain things or do certain things where it's like, dude, you should be focused on the game. You can have your women on the free time. Don't get me wrong. But there's a time when you're talking to the media, when you're on social media, your mind should be focused on the game. And those two specifically, man, stuff is coming out. And it's like, dude, is your head in the right place for winning? Because you can have your female time away from your work time. It's a man thing, okay? It's not just a basketball thing. And these two, it's just their mind seems to wander away from the game and towards the females. And it's taken it's been a weird look for both of them. And I'm not saying they've made a comment or two. They've consistently, it's similar with Kevin Durant too. They're saying and doing stuff that could be more in a private type of setting. And if those two do not get it, I mean, it could work. This could be a Western Conference Finals team with these two now in that backcourt. But they got to make a way to figure it out. So we will wrap it up here. I'm out of time. Thank you guys for tuning in, whether it was on YouTube, whether it was the radio station or the TV station here. We'll have Bob back next week with us. We'll talk about what the Guards did over July 4th week and weekend. We'll talk about where the NBA offseason is. We might talk a little about training camp's going to be in a few weeks, believe it or not. We'll talk about Major League Baseball All-Star Game because that is coming up the following week. So we'll talk about that and more. So a lot of things going on. And the World Cup, hopefully we'll be talking about USA in the top 16. So with all that being said, okay, go Guards, go Rubber Ducks, and go Team USA. We love to see it. Go out and go see a ball game on this beautiful weather. Enjoy your summer. Be safe. Be good to everybody. We'll be back next time.